Dear brothers, dear novices, today is the 16th of August 2020. Dear Sangha, Deer Park is a very fantastic place among the centers of Plum Village in the US. This is not because I stay here and I compliment Deer Park, but because I've been to Magnolia and Blue Cliff for not so long, but for maybe a week or 10 days. Speaking like this, the other centers might be jealous, but it's true, because the first thing is the climate. The weather here is very nice. Some days are very hot, but it's always cooling at night. At most, during the summers, maybe it's only 5 or 10 days, a couple of weeks of hot weather. And regardless of hot or cold weather, it's not humid. Meanwhile, in Magnolia or Blue Cliff, imagine that once you just took a shower, would you just take a shower and you're stepping outside, you're already sweating and feeling already sticky. I don't really often take a shower, so this is the best place for me. My robes can be a little dirty, but I wouldn't smell like a over-ripened banana. And so other centers don't have the mountains as we do, just flat surface, flat terrain. Going to the mountain is quite a journey. We just have to step outside to have mountains here. We have their whole nature for ourselves, and so it's rarely that we hear sounds of vehicles. Other centers is very noisy. In such environment, then the environment is polluted and also affect our practice, and also the pollution of the noises from the vehicles. It can also affect our mind and our community. Before, the Buddha used to say in one of the sutra, so that we can put this into practice and to see that the Deer Park has a lot to offer, and so that if we cannot become saints, we not become holy people, then it's such a pity. He said that for lay friends to practice, no matter how they practice diligently, they are still affected by the society, and also for monks and just for lay friends, they are easy to fall into the 5 poisons. But for monastics, we already have an environment so beneficial for us. And some of us just sit and fall asleep, but that's still okay. We might think that the health of that brother is at a certain condition, and he needs to take more sleep. But once he wakes up, he can sit to meditate, and so he's not dragged away by the 5 poisons. So we need to see that the environment is very important. And the second thing is, there is no such environments that can be compared to Deer Park. We haven't missed a meal. We have closed for 4 or 5 months due to Corona. We're still alive. Meanwhile, in life outside, the society is very difficult. They cannot go to work, and the first difficulty is their mind heading externally, heading outwards. So it's very difficult for them not to go to work, and they have conflicts with one another, arguments and violence, and this is also one of the conditions that cause conflicts among society. And so craziness and chaos are born from the inability to go to work. Robbery, destruction of properties, and so on. And it's just they become so hopeless, so restless. And so the mountain and forest of Deer Park, we don't have to practice so much. We just have to live here for 3 or 5 years. We already feel peaceful. We feel easeful rather easily. So the condition, the environment is very important. So when we read the Sutra of the Nikaya literature, we see that the life of the bhikshus and the Buddha is attached to the forest, to the peaceful and quiet nights and with the moon, and so a lot of them were born in such condition, and also the rain retreat was born in such condition also. And so one night after the moon, one night with the moon, after they finished their evening sit. At the time, the moon was very bright. And so once the Buddha released himself from the meditation, he asked the bhikshus, after 3 months of rain retreat, do you see that the Tathagata has any unskillfulness insulted you, or do you have any doubts towards the Tathagata, so the Tathagata can readjust himself? And so, for a teacher who gave birth to 1,200 bhikshus, after his sitting meditation, to say something so humbling, doesn't think that he is a great teacher, doesn't think that he is the best, or arrogance or pride. One question, one sentence that expresses his compassion and his beautiful way of behaving, of acting. And so asking the brothers during the 3 months retreats, if you see in myself any unskillfulness towards you, please tell me so I can adjust myself. So the bhikshus from Sariputra to other bhikshus, they replied that you are our teacher, you are our spiritual father. You don't have any unskillfulness in your action or speech that insulted us. On the other hand, 3 months of the rain retreat, we are leaning on you, taking refuge in you to practice. So if we have any unskillful, any insulting or mistakes towards you, please let us know, and please let us express our regret. And so the whole Sangha at that night just kneeled and expressed that gratitude and that action towards the Buddha. And so that's why we have the practice of beginning anew. And seems like in the past, the life of the original Sangha were attached with the nature, with the forest. Not even one of the patriarchs, one teacher who taught about the Dharma using the examples of Mother Nature as much as Buddhism. And the Buddha was born under and spent his time under a tree, and 6 months of practicing meditation under a Bodhi tree. Enlightenment was reached by the Buddha was also under a Bodhi tree. And so when he entered Nirvana, the Buddha was also passing away between the two sala trees. And so at the time, the nobilities were rich people, and the Buddha was living in a rich environment. But once he passed away, he chose a very small town in among a very poor population to pass on. So we need to realize that there's nothing more important, more beautiful in the monastic life than living in a beautiful forest or beautiful nature that supports our practice. So at most is Deer Park. We have 500 acres. So much for us to hang out, to wander around. And so something admiring about the brothers is that we are still young in the practice, still young brothers, haven't attained the high fruits of understanding, but every Saturday or every other day I saw the brothers with their backpacks going to the mountains, drinking tea. And sometimes when I go out to the city to teach, and some disciples ask, what do the brothers do during lazy time in Deer Park? And I answered them that, very nice. They spend their time very wisely going to the mountains. They don't. To them, it's not that shopping outside or any worldly amusements that can bring them true happiness, but the very simple acts of going hiking. So we need to see that we are in a very nourishing condition to practice. In a condition that doesn't have the benefits for us to practice is very difficult, very challenging. Interacting with the outside society is very restless. So it seems like the gate of Deer Park is protecting us from all of the restless and chaos in the outside world. And not even one person who has attained the fruit of understanding in the past was successful, who never had lived or spent their time in the forests and mountains. That is what I've researched. And so we need to see that we have a lot of conditions for happiness in our practice. The second thing is closer, is that apart from nature, we have another condition, is the practice itself, the life of the practice. If we know how to practice, how to live, how to reinforce our practice, then each and every one of us shines brightly and emitting a very positive aura surround us. Well, this is easy to see, easy to feel when we interact with someone who is unsettled, restless, or unwholesome mind, and we can feel that there is something. It's like a thorn that we cannot reach further to touch that person. It's like a cactus, but the thorn of a cactus is visible, but the thorns of a person is invisible. And it seems like when we do practice, we are sensitive, we are sharp. We can feel the energy of other people. And when someone who is very open, very wholesome, it's easy for them to practice. But when someone has jealousy, greed, or anger within themselves, and it seems like surrounding them is a dark aura, very negative energy. So when we have a lot of those people like that in a community, then it creates a biofield that is very dark through covering the entire community. This is something that we create ourselves in a community. Easy to recognize, because in a community, when we don't know how to practice, it is then it will bring the values of that sangha down. And if we are in such a sangha, then it is very difficult, very challenging to protect our senses, protecting ourselves. But in a community like this, we have very positive energy, positive flow of the river. Sometimes we don't have to do much, we have to just let it go and let the Sangha carry us. And another thing that's very important is that the capacity of our practice creates a contribution, even though it is invisible but very effective, that it can help the entire Sangha to have peace and happiness. When we practice the Sangha, it's not a individual matter, but the matter of the whole community. It connects to the environment of a practitioner. We always interact with one another using our words, our look, and with the mind of practice, with the mind of wholesomeness, and each of our look, each of our action brings about warmth to other people around us. Otherwise, if there's no certain practice, then our look is like two bullets tearing the sky and shooting at the other people. And our sentence, our words can bring about hurt. It doesn't have to be much, but just one sentence can destroy the connection, the brotherhood between one another. And the family life outside, they can spend money and time to marry one another, but only one sentence can destroy their whole happiness, their whole family life that they spend so much effort in. The same in our practice center, our practice environment. The connection depends on the way we speak, the way we think. So, if we have wisdom, then our words and our speech, our thought would also have wisdom. This is something we can contribute. When I go to a Sangha who truly practice, then the way the brothers behave is very different. A simple act of just playfulness, of playing with one another, or preparing flowers, or preparing seeds, or offering incense, or making just a few sentences of poetry, then it all expresses their ability to practice. But when a Sangha that lacks the practice, when they play, it's very unskillful. When they decorate their temple, it's also very unskillful, very difficult to look at. And when they speak, it's also full of insults and bitterness. And so from this, it creates a reflection that come back and haunts the community. But when a Sangha that can practice truly, then it's filled with mindfulness, energy, and wisdom. The values of those who are well-learned, well-studied, and it can help the people who live there to soak in the energy easily. This is a natural law, natural nature. And just by looking at the outside of a Sangha, of a community, we can see that in this Sangha there are people who are wise, there are people who are wholesome, there are people who are well-learned. This cannot be hidden, except unless we are unable to see clearly, unable to, or lack the wisdom. But the majority of us can see how the brothers interact, how monastics interact in the monastery. This is unable to be hidden. And it creates the environment around that community. The physical environment that can sometimes need to spend a lot of energy and money. But the environment created around practitioner, then it's different. For example, in order to have a practice center like Deer Park, it requires a lot of merits. Just like Tay has a lot of merits. But when we have such a great condition, but we cannot create a warmth, a good value of our practice, then we also will destroy the foundation that was created for us. So this is something natural that arises from the way we practice. So we need to realize that we are inheriting a wonderful condition. So we need to practice in such a way that can nourish ourselves and nourish those around us. The third result is that when we have an inner strength of the practice, the entire community has this power of practice. Then, for aspirants to come, then naturally they are nourished very greatly. Maybe we don't teach them much yet, but just let them stay here, just working meditation, eating, interacting with the monastics, and it can create a very powerful transformation. It's not through words, but through our Dharma body. The way we walk, the way we speak, the way we smile is a type of lesson, a type of teaching without using words. It is called Han Yao, is teaching or transforming through action instead of words. This is a better way of teaching, because if no matter how well we speak, if our action doesn't reflect what we speak, then it doesn't have much effect. I've listened to some monastics from Christian or Catholic. I remember one of them was so one of them, before his Dharma talk, he would say that, please let me speak what I've done, and let me able to do what I speak. That is his prayer before his Dharma talk. Please let me be able to do what I speak, and let me speak what I can do. And it is obvious in our monastic life is that once we can do this, even though it is an aspirant or a lay friend who come to us, we don't need to force them to study much, because study that can penetrate into the mind of people is actually from the action, from the teaching through action, not through words. So when we have the true practice, we can create a very perfect environment to nourish ourselves and to generations to come. One of the most pity thing in the Buddhism is that Buddha said that do not be the last one of Buddhism. That means afterwards there's no one can continue. So to the Buddha, it is very important to have someone to carry on the teaching. Sometimes we have a misunderstanding that someone comes to us and practice, and they're bringing us that we are giving them fortune. But actually, when they come to us, they are bringing us some fortune, because without them, no one will carry on the flow of Buddhism. So when we see new people coming to practice with us, don't think that we are doing something for them, but actually think that they are supporting us. If we cannot nourish monastics staying with us, then that is a pity. I'm not sure what it is like in Vietnam, but in the U.S., whenever we have an aspirant, it is very lucky, because once they realized their monastic life, it is not because of the sensual desire of money or fame. Then they can find that so easily outside. So when they come to the Dharma, they all carry with them a very burning desire of the bodhicitta to practice. So if we cannot practice, and if we cannot nourish new brothers, then it is the collective mistake of the community. It's not just about individuals, but about the whole Sangha. The ability to nourish monastics is very important. So when we can practice, we know how to practice, we create a very positive and pure environment that can nourish animal, people, and plants. Imagine the climate, the environment of this planet is polluted and it cannot nourish anyone. A Sangha in a practice center that cannot practice enough to create a positive environment to nourish others, then it is a mistake. It is a fault collectively. So when a community knows how to practice, then the aura can shine brightly, and the support from men and gods will be upon that Sangha. And so we don't need to spend too much effort when that happens. So the environments that we create with our practice creates a chain of reaction for our later generation to inherit. So the third thing is, in such condition, the brothers are nourished. So we can develop two aspects. One is wisdom, two is compassion in an easy way. This is the foundation. Wisdom is the foundation of building to all the way to the highest understanding. Not even one great monastic or teacher who doesn't possess wisdom and understanding and compassion. Our planet, on our planet closest to us is Siom, who wouldn't be able to practice as he did, as he has been practicing, without compassion and wisdom. A second person is the Dalai Lama. Without the foundation of compassion and wisdom, he would not be able to maintain the Buddhism of Tibet. He carries on his shoulders the history, the culture of Tibet, a culture that is that was expelled from Tibet by China, and more than 100 people burned themselves to speak out for the independence of Tibet, so they can maintain their people and culture. But to the Dalai Lama, from him, no one has ever heard any grudging words from him against the Communist Party of China. He is filled with compassion, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have wisdom to repent. He does repel, but with the foundation of compassion. Not even a great teacher doesn't have the foundation of compassion and wisdom. We also need this foundation to realize the fruit of understanding. So we can nourish ourselves with the sutras of the Buddha and the practice of meditation each day with directing compassion to all beings. So when this is fully realized, fully practiced, then it creates a very positive energy in the sangha, very meditative environment, and also an environment of wisdom for all who dwells in the sangha. This is within our reach. We can do this. The fourth thing is that the ability to learn Buddhism, the ability to read the sutras, to investigate, to observe, in order to give birth to wisdom, is not limitless. It's not timeless until we are 70 or 80 that we can do it. But actually, it only has a period. In my experience, from 70 and below, then we can still soak in more knowledge and wisdom. But above 70, even earlier, then our nervous system is deteriorating. And at the time, we cannot advance as quickly in our meditation, in our learning, in our reading. So, at this time, we're only using what we have accumulated, not learning new things so much. Until 70, we can still learn new things rather easily. But above that age, then our capacity is reducing. And so, what I'm trying to say here is that our library doesn't lack the Nikaya, doesn't lack the sutras. So hopefully, no matter how busy we are, then please remember that the foundation of the Nikaya literature or the sutra taught by the Buddha is the foundation that will lead us to understanding. And if we haven't read the 5 Nikayas, then we have something to regret, to express our regret to the Buddha. Our text is much longer than Christianity. There's a Bible. The Bible is the foundation of the development of European countries. U.S. is not a European country. Doesn't inherit such a strong Christianity or Catholicism. But after the presidents who won his elections, not every single one of them did not put their hands on the symbol of Jesus or God to express their gratitude. So we need to see that the foundation of technological development and culture of society is built on the Bible. And just a Bible can create such wonders in this world, contributing an idea about politics that can help many countries. And Buddhism is proud that the foundation of literature is so rich, so much, but we are unable to express, to explore that. But we are brothers, we are monastics. Then there's no excuse that we are not learning the sutras. I need to repeat that being a monastic who doesn't read the 5 Nikayas is quite guilty. We are the sons of the Buddha. not a single father who doesn't know well the Bible. But they only used a couple of verses. They always carry with them the Bible, a symbol of the highest respect. And for us, we are still quite superficial towards the teaching of the Buddha. I'm not speaking about the teaching, the contents yet. And it seems that there's not a single sutra that doesn't contain the wisdom of an enlightened being. And as a disciple of the Buddha, we are still quite superficial. We think that we can study this or that, leading people into a very great practice, but actually not yet. We need to realize that there is no such high understanding as the understanding of the Buddha. But we think that people who are good in the psychology of a normal society, but we need to realize that that wisdom is born from the thinking mind, the analytical mind, but not from direct experience. What we need to do is we need to nourish our wisdom using the sutras. This is not difficult for us. There's only a PDF that we can download. Some files that we can download that already contains a lot of the teachings. And imagine the whole length of development of Plum Village. We see that Thay doesn't use many of the teachings from the sutras to build the foundation. He only uses the sutra on the four establishment of mindfulness, of vipassana, and the practice of vipassana. So he is only teaching 1/4 of practicing the body in the body, which is the breathing, the practice of breathing. That alone has already benefiting countless people and saving from the shattering lives of many in the society with a lot of stress and restlessness. So only 1/4 of the four establishment of mindfulness on the body. He only uses contemplating on the breath. That alone was enough to save so many lives, establishing a connection with their family and society. And so, who are we that we dare to look down upon the teachings of the Buddha, when our teacher has only used a very small part of the teaching? So I am stressing that we need to nourish and support our wisdom with the sutras, the teachings in the sutras. If we are not well trained, then the first thing is, like I said, we are guilty towards the Buddha. We are turning our back away from the teaching and unable to establish a strong foundation to our practice to go for our current life and the lives to come. So the stronger the foundation we build on our life, we can build a pyramid or a skyscraper. So if the understanding of Buddhism, of Buddhist teaching, is not supported, then the house will collapse because the foundation is too weak. We cannot take our roots deeply into the teaching of the Buddha, the flow of Buddhism. A day passes so quickly. each year we grow older. So the older we get, the more deteriorating in our mind we become. The sharpness of youth will disappear. And lastly, we all have time. It's not that we don't have time. We have a lot of time. Please spend your time and wisely. So if we know how to practice skillfully, we can increase our wisdom. If our wisdom is increased, then that will also support our ability to practice. The second thing is when we have the ability to read, to practice, to learn, then it creates a virtue of a practitioner. We become more virtuous. Then otherwise, we're just like the water hyacinths, the water plants that follow the tide of the river. And day to day and year by year, we waste a lifetime. And so, the third thing is that when we have the capacity to learn, to contemplate, to study, then it creates an environment that shines brightly. We don't need to do much. We just need to nourish our own individual capacity to learn and to practice. That is already a great contribution to our brethren, to our monastic siblings. And then naturally they can inherit, they can be influenced by this practice from ourselves. If we cannot do this, then dear Sangha, then we are making our life become more boring, that we are not advancing, and it is very pity that each day we are not finding happiness in our practice, that we cannot put our roots deeply in our practice. Then this is a loss, a great loss, because it is not easy to have such opportunity, to be fortunate, to be so close to the Dharma, to give rise to our bodhicitta, to practice. Once we lose this body, maybe 99 lifetimes after that we can have the same body of a human being. So that is a few things that I just like to share with the community to nourish our bodhicitta. So I will stop here. Thank you. No need to speak too much.